Hafa Thank you everyone for being here for today's hearing. Today's Friday, June 21. The time is 1:05 p.m. The Committee on Health, Tourism, Historic Preservation, Land and Justice is now called to order. Notices for this public hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on June 14 and June 19. The notice was also published in the Guam Daily Post on June 14 and 18, 2019. We have two items on the agenda. Bill number 138-35, introduced by Senator Amanda Shelton and all senators of the 35th Guam Legislature, and bill which is an act relative to expanding the Natasha Protection Act of 2005 to define and prohibit the use of electronic smoking devices wherever other tobacco products are already prohibited. And the second item on our agenda is Bill number 88-35, introduced by Speaker Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes. It's an act relative to exempting home kitchens licensed as a home industry from sanitation laws and stipulating requirements for these home kitchens. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my colleagues, beginning with the Legislative Secretary, Senator Amanda Shelton, Senator Regine Biscoe-Lee. Thank you, Senators, for being here. And we will now begin with the first item on our agenda, which is Bill number 138-35. And we have a sign-up list. So please sign up if you'd like to be heard verbally today. And otherwise, I'll let the sponsor introduce her bill.
Sejus Masi, Madam Chair, and thank you very much for hearing this bill today. Studies show that the vapor generated from electronic cigarettes has variable amounts of nicotine and potential harmful toxins, albeit at levels lower than in conventional cigarettes. In addition to the possible role of e-cigarettes in establishing nicotine addiction and as a gateway to conventional cigarettes for youth, studies show using an e-cigarette in indoor environments involuntarily expose non-users to nicotine. And nicotine itself has a negative impact on adolescent brain development and on development of the fetal brain, with implications for use during pregnancy. Despite the tenfold decrease in the total exposure to particular elements in e-cigarettes compared to normal cigarettes, specific metals still displayed a higher emission rate from e-cigarettes. In December 2018, U.S. Surgeon General Jerome Adams said, "I am officially declaring e-cigarette use among youth an epidemic in the United States. Now is the time to take action. We need to protect our young people from all tobacco products, including e-cigarettes." The Surgeon General's advisory called on parents and teachers to educate themselves about the variety of e-cigarettes and to talk with children about their dangers, for health professionals to ask about e-cigarettes when screening patients for tobacco use, and for local authorities to ban indoor vaping to discourage vaping by young people. Similar legislation has been passed in the states of California, Hawaii, Alaska, Utah, North Dakota, Maine, Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Delaware, and New Jersey. Locally, Dr. Michael Augustin from GRMC discovered a case of popcorn lung, diffuse alveolar hemorrhage, which was severe, and blood had saturated the airways of the patient. Dr. Augustin concluded that this was caused by aggressive vaping of the patient, and his paper on the case has been published in national medical journals. In the conclusion of his paper, Dr. Augustin states, "Severe complication may arise from vaping, despite being marketed as a safe alternative to conventional smoking. This would encourage clinicians to be vigilant on the respiratory risks of vaping." I want to remind everyone what Bill 138-35 does and what it does not do. Bill 138-35 will amend the Natasha Protection Act of 2005 to include the use of electronic smoking devices. There are currently no laws on Guam to prohibit the use of these devices in public places. My office will also work with the committee to include the prohibition of smoking near the entrance of a building as well. So in essence, the bill would only prohibit the use of these devices wherever smoking cigarettes is currently prohibited. The use of vaping devices would still be allowed wherever smoking cigarettes is currently allowed. The Natasha Protection Act was first introduced by then-Senator Lou Leon Guerrero in 2005. The public law is named after Natasha Perez, who was 14 years old at the time and suffered from osteosarcoma, a rare form of cancer. Natasha could not go out to eat or anywhere in public where there might be smoking because the smoke could further compromise her health. I want to thank Natasha's mother, Jenny, for being here today to carry out Natasha's legacy. She was my best friend growing up. And her struggles with cancer are memories that are etched into my childhood. I also watched her struggle for clean air, and no one should have to worry about their next breath when trying to enjoy an evening out with their families at a restaurant or at the movies. Some may argue that vaping is a civil rights issue, but your right to vape stops where another person's lungs begin. I also want to say, too, that I know that most vapers are courteous and acknowledge the effect their aerosol may have on others. But there will always be a few that need the law to enforce decency. I and my office have heard several stories of incidences, such as one in an indoor children's play area, where a parent was smoking an e-cigarette device and refused to stop because there was no law banning vaping indoors. Bill 138-35 will codify common sense and common decency, and I welcome your public comments to strengthen this legislation. Sidus Masi.
Sidus Masi, Senator. If I may now call some of those who signed up to testify. Genevieve, you didn't indicate oral, but I'm going to assume you wanted to testify. Okay, so please come up. You're first, Kathy Rivera Castro, Peter J. Cruz, Corey Chun, Ron Laguanya. DeMarco Kennedy. Christian Valencia, the Speaker of the Guam Youth Congress. All right, we'll have another panel after this. Is Peter J. Cruz here? All right, then.
I beg your pardon. Senator, Peter Cruz is my co-lead for the Tobacco Control Coalition, and he's currently off island, but has asked me to read his testimony as well as Corey Chan from ACS CAM.
Wonderful. We'll begin now with Ms. Leon Guerrero.
Okay. Yes, Leon Guerrero Garrett. Hafa and good afternoon, Senators. Thank you for allowing me to testify in support of the Act to amend Chapter 90, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated for Bill 138. Sponsored by yourself and quite a few other senators, including Amanda Shelton. My name is Genevieve Leon Guerrero Garrett, and my daughter is Natasha Perez, the namesake for No Smoking in Restaurants, the Natasha Protection Act. Please just permit me to share the history of the actualization of the Natasha Protection Act. Natasha, as Senator Amanda Shelton had shared, was diagnosed with osteosarcoma. It's a rare form of bone cancer, and a bone cancer which eventually migrated to her lungs. After 2 failed lung operations with the extraction of half of her lung, her left lung, we returned home after 2 years of living in Michigan and New York City. While we were living in New York City, we had the benefit of no smoking in restaurants. New York was one of the first states to implement this law. Unlike our previous dining experience, we would have to leave a restaurant, either like come really early so that we can beat the smokers, or what will happen is, if many of you recall, if you went to a local restaurant, let's say at Shirley's, what happens is there would just be a small little partition with artificial plants marking the smokers and the non-smokers. So while in New York, I promised my daughter that she would be afforded the same smoke-free environment here on Guam. Our visit, as shared by Senator Shelton, it's kind of strange to call her because I knew her since she was a little girl. We would visit Senator Lulian Guerrero, who is now our Magat Haga, who oversaw the healthcare legislations. When Tosh was 14, we paid a visit to her office with the hopes of similar legislation supporting a smoke-free restaurant environment. I recall that Natasha, in her insistence to bring a photo of herself. For those of us not in the medical field, I just have to give you why this was important that she brought a photo of herself. Because if you've ever had the mischance of going to a cancer pediatric hospital, you will see a long wall full of all these children. I'm sorry. You would see pictures of these children, and the visual postings were supposed to be reminders of the value of life, to be remembered, and at the least, never to be forgotten. So Senator Leon Guerrero, she was our pick also, aside from her handling healthcare, because she was a former nurse. So when Tosh was 5, so we went when she was 14. Then when we came, then she turned 15, and the legislation was, they were having a public hearing similar to this, and I shuttled her friends to support the no smoking bill. Shuttled Amanda Shelton and several of her other classmates with Natasha. And at the time, Natasha was too nervous, and she begged, "Mom, please, you do this for me." At the time of what was considered social change, as the debate of invading people's privacy was echoed in mainstream media and in talk shows, restaurant owners feared at the time that our businesses would shut down. Hotel management predicted the end of tourism on Guam. The sky would fall. I'm glad to report the sky never fell. Tourism, restaurants did not shut down, and our hotel industry was booming. Presenting you a little glance of my daughter's compromised lung capacity. She was not afforded what many of us in this room take for granted: the mere ability to breathe in oxygen effortlessly. When you're lung compromised, the simplest of tasks becomes one of consuming of physical energy, followed by sheer exhaustion. So imagine you walking from here to your vehicle, and then after you reach your vehicle, you would have to rest for 10 to 15 minutes to catch your breath. Imagine walking up a flight of stairs with a backpack filled of books. As high school best friends, Amanda Shelton knew of Natasha's struggle. Amanda carried her backpack every day for 12 months, up and down the stairways and to each of her classes, in the effort to ease the burden of her friend's pain because she was either too weak or too frail. I regret that Amanda bore witness to the loss of her best friend as she saw her best friend die at the age of 15. I'm sorry. Sometimes we need the assistance of others to serve those with physical or health challenges. Natasha had Amanda. Many of us would perform these acts of kindness because we were just raised that way. Some of us help others because we're told to, while others need a law just like this to ensure the mindfulness, to ensure the quality of the air that is not impacted to those who are physically or mentally compromised. A few days before Natasha's passing away, she shared, "Mom, the no smoking law is not going to happen." A memory walk for those who don't know the history of how this really became a law. It was already approved. It was a law, but there was a restraining order that was placed on the approved law of the Natasha Protection Act. At the time, it was placed by the Attorney General. As the restraining order was being heard in court, Natasha passed away. I shared with Tosh prior to her passing how sometimes people are interesting. They might rally support at the cost of someone's suffering. The day of my daughter's passing, the media talk show, the tone of protecting health issues of others, such as those with asthma, the elderly, and children, to ensure the quality of air would not be compromised, that became the talk. People are funny like that. As I once testified about the no smoking legislation, I am here again, as I was before, to still follow Natasha's legacy, and I ask you all to continue to support Bill 138. This legislation is not a ban on vaping, but rather adding the range of smoke inhalants, such as e-cigarettes, which might compromise others' quality of air. Senator Amanda Shelton, thank you for expanding this legislation, which is in keeping with the smoking trend of vaping. Natasha would be so proud of you.
Thank you, Jenny, for being here and for sharing the story. I think I'm very happy that you are reminding us of that long trek and how different things were back then. I remember very clearly, even the lawyer part, when the lawyer got the phone call, he called me, Attorney Phillips, just the impact on the entire community. Thank you. Senator, did you want to say anything right now?
It's okay. Just wanted to say thank you very much for being here. And I want you to know, too, that I invited a lot of our old classmates and friends who couldn't be here today, but who wanted to be here in memory of Tosh, who support this and everything that you continue to do to carry on her legacy. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to acknowledge the presence also of Speaker Munya Barnes. Thank you, Speaker, for being here. And if any other senator would like to comment at this point?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to take the time to thank the sponsor of this legislation. Thank you very much, Senator Shelton, for stepping up and bringing this forward to our body. And Auntie Jenny, I just want to thank you so much for your courage and for continuing Tasha's legacy and ensuring that we have a healthy community and that we ensure that other children and our children's children are protected in these ways. Thank you so very much.
Speaker Masi, Madam Chair, for giving me the opportunity to speak, but more importantly, thank you, Ms. Jen, for literally being the advocate, for being the warrior that your daughter so truly needed, so that the community could know that, you know what, oxygen is really important, and we have to be able to be mindful of our surroundings and the people around us. But what may be okay for us is not okay for them. And when Senator Amanda had asked me to be a co-sponsor, I said without a doubt, blindfolded, that I would sign it. And I want you to know that as I look at the bill, all 15 of us have placed our initial on that. So our angel is still watching out for all the right reasons, and we want to say Undunkle and Asizosmasi. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you again, Ms. Leon Garrett. Zitsusmasi. We're now hear from other members of our panel this morning. Ms. Kathy Castro.
Buenas and Hafide, Senator Therese Terlaje, Chairperson of the Committee on Tourism, Land, Historic Preservation, Health, and Justice, and Senators of the 35th Guam Legislature. My name is Kathy Rivera Castro, and a resident of the village of Mongmo. I am appearing before you in full support of Bill 138-35, COR. I am a mother and a grandmother that wants to do what I can to ensure that the island, my grandchildren, and the generations after them will be one that is safe, healthy, and prosperous. As co-lead of the Guam Non-Communicable Disease Consortium Tobacco Control Action Team, TCAT as we are known, and also known as the Tobacco Control Coalition, I have had many meetings with you individually and collectively to address the issues of tobacco control for our island. TCAT and the Tobacco Control Coalition comprises of representatives from cross-sectors of the community, from the military to government agencies, from cancer organizations to nonprofit groups, concerned citizens, and the like. These individuals work diligently to ensure that through effective policy changes, we are able to lower the rates of tobacco nicotine usage on our island. The introduction of this bill was one of the policy changes that TCAT had sought since 2018, beginning with Bill 198-34 COR. Unfortunately, that bill did not come to fruition, but we were certainly not discouraged. With the implementation of Public Law 34-01 that clarified the definition of electronic cigarettes as a tobacco product, following the FDA ruling of May 2016, we sought to remove any issues, challenges, or questions that might arise with regards to smoking versus vaping. We in the Tobacco Control Coalition are truly elated to see this policy come to this point. Electronic nicotine delivery systems, also known as ENDS or ENDS, do not emit harmless water vapor. E-cigarettes or ENDS are an aerosol. Vapor is a terminology used by the industry to conceal its harm. Studies have found that these aerosols contain nicotine and are made up of ultrafine particles, and its concentration is higher than in conventional tobacco cigarette smoke. Exposure to these particles may exacerbate respiratory ailments, constrict arteries, which could trigger a heart attack. Acetaldehyde, benzene, calcium, formaldehyde, isoprene, lead, nickel, nicotine, nitroso-nicotine, and toluene are just some of the chemicals that have been identified in mainstream and secondhand aerosol emission. Diethylene glycol, a poisonous organic compound, was also detected in the aerosol cloud. The e-juice, which is a liquid added to the device, contains and emits propylene glycol. Short-term exposure causes eye, throat, and airway irritation, and long-term inhalation exposure can result in children developing asthma. FDA scientists have also found detectable levels of carcinogenic tobacco-specific nitrosamines, and one study has shown that the level of nicotine absorbed into the aerosol is comparable to a passive smoker. The American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers, also known as ASHRAE, has concluded that aerosol emissions from e-liquids emit harmful chemicals into the air and need to be regulated in the same manner as tobacco smoking. They have stated, and I quote, "E-cigarettes do not produce a vapor, gas, but rather a dense, visible aerosol of liquid submicron droplets consisting of glycols, nicotine, and other chemicals, some of which are carcinogenic. For example, formaldehyde, metals like cadmium, lead, nickel, and nitrosamines." There is also a potential risk of third-hand exposure to nicotine released from the aerosol cloud that deposits on indoor surfaces. Recommendations from the World Health Organization is that ends should not be used indoors, especially in smoke-free environments, in order to minimize the risk to bystanders of breathing in the aerosol emitted by these devices. The American Industrial Hygiene Association, AIHA, has also recommended that ends be included to smoke-free laws stating, and I quote, "Because of e-cigarettes are a potential source of pollutants such as airborne nicotine, flavorings, and thermal degradation products, their use in the indoor environment should be restricted, consistent with current smoking bans until and unless research documents that they will not significantly increase the risk of adverse health effects to room occupants," end quote. The American Public Health Association adopted a resolution, quote, "supporting regulation of electronic cigarettes," end quote, saying, and I quote, "States and municipalities should enact and enforce laws prohibiting the use of e-cigarettes in all enclosed areas of public access and places of employment. These standards should be incorporated into existing clean indoor air laws." The American Association for Cancer Research and the American Society of Clinical Oncology has also supported the prohibition of the use of ends in smoke-free spaces until the safety of second and third-hand aerosol exposure has been established. Electronic nicotine delivery systems are a new source of pollution. Toxins are being emitted into our environment. Studies are still being conducted, and the far long-term effects from their use are still unknown. The industry has implied consistently that these products are harmless, that they emit a vapor, but they are aerosols. They do not emit purely water vapor. We cannot and must not wait until we realize too late the long-term harmful effects, for the data and information has already shown that dangers do exist. Let us not be fooled into thinking that electronic nicotine delivery systems are without risk. The Johns Hopkins Institute for Global Tobacco Control stated that 51 countries has prohibited or restricted the use of e-cigarettes in public places. 6 of these countries have banned them completely. 7 countries have prohibited the use of e-cigarettes in vehicles with minors. In a publication from the American Non-Smokers' Rights Foundation has stated that, quote, as of April 1st, 2019, 841 municipalities and 15 states include ends as a product that are prohibited for use in smoke-free environments. I would also like to appeal to this body to consider amending Public Law 30-63 relative to prohibiting smoking within 20 feet of an entrance or exit or a public place where smoking is prohibited, to apply this prohibition of the use of electronic nicotine delivery systems to that law. I have been a strong and vocal tobacco control advocate for many years. Electronic nicotine delivery systems are a new and emerging product, and that the tobacco industry has introduced into our society as an alternative to cigarette use. Though the studies that have already been done, evidence has shown that there is significant harms in their use. Together, we now have the opportunity to be proactive in the fight to control these products. We must do so in the best interest of our community. Let us not wait another 60 years to recognize the damages it is causing to our society. We are here, and the time is now. I don't want my grandchildren to be sitting in this seat doing what I'm doing, fighting for their grandchildren's lives. I applaud Senator Amanda Shelton and the 14 other members of the 35th Guam Legislature that has co-sponsored this bill. Your commitment to the health and safety of our community is evident by your support. It is my greatest prayer that when this bill is entertained on the session floor, your unwavering support and commitment will once again come to pass. You have shown the people of Guam that you have put their interests first before all else, thus fulfilling what they have asked of you. On behalf of the members of the NCD Tobacco Control Team, the Tobacco Control Coalition, my grandchildren, and those in our community that look to you to continue to make our community a better one. Gininimastat kalum na corazonhu, undang kuluna agradecimiento en sizus maasi para todos hamzu, ni un naizu esti na oportunidad ni para befana hamzu. My sincerest appreciation and thanks to all of you from the bottom of my heart for this opportunity to appear before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Castro, and thank you to the entire organization for your advocacy and research and all your efforts throughout all these years, and for your testimony today.
I would like to read my co-lead in the Tobacco Control Coalition's testimony. Mr. Pete Cruz is currently off island. Hafa-Adai Senators of the 35th Guam Legislature. My name is Peter J. Cruz, and I retired from the Guam Behavioral and Health and Wellness Center several years ago. After 3 decades of working with the mental health population and substance abusers, the use of nicotine products has always been prevalent. Being a certified nicotine cessation facilitator, I have witnessed firsthand on the damage nicotine products has and can do to the human body. If there is something that has been ingrained into me while working in this field of endeavor, is that addiction is addiction is addiction. The use of any nicotine product is the consumption of nicotine, plain and simple. Studies have shown that nicotine is so addictive that it takes several attempts to become nicotine-free. The issue we now have is that there are several forms of delivery, whether it is through oral, respiratory, liquefied. It gives this product a totally different face. For this reason, I am in full support of Bill 138-35. In upcoming testimonies, you will hear today that you will be educated on recent findings that vaping is really more of an aerosol than a vapor, that the ingredient in e-juice are similar to that found in cigarettes. Certain illnesses found just by one use of vaping that are not found by use of cigarettes, that the instrument itself is a potential explosive device, that the whole scheme of the big tobacco company is to capture the youth of our society for its long-term profitability. In 1960, the Surgeon General came out with its first report on tobacco. It took America over 40 years to realize the health hazards of tobacco use. We find ourselves in the same predicament with vaping. In today's scientific research, there are articles that are published daily with findings that vaping is dangerous to one's health. The betterment of Guam's future's health outlook rests before you, Senators. You have heard time and time again that the top 3 mortality incidents on Guam are all nicotine-related. By passing Bill 138-35, you can assure that the rates will definitely diminish over time. I've been providing nicotine cessation facilitation for the island since 2003. I have witnessed Guam's attitude towards nicotine use change for the good. I plead with you, please do not crumble this momentum. As co-leader for the NCD Tobacco Control Action Team, the Tobacco Control Coalition, along with Ms. Kathy Rivera Castro, it is our goal to enhance the health of our island. Thank you for your time. Dunklina Siduas Maasi, Peter J. Cruz, Certified Nicotine Cessation Facilitator, co-lead of the Tobacco Control Action Team.
Thank you very much again for the testimony of Peter Cruz. We also have listed Corey Chun.
Yes.
And you have testimony from?
I am also the Ambassador Constituent Team Lead for the American Cancer Society's Cancer Action Network. Corey Chun is my staff partner from Hawaii, and he has submitted his testimony. 35th Guam Legislature, Committee on Health, Tourism, Historic Preservation, Land, and Justice. Senator Therese Terlaje, Chair. Senator Sabina Flores Perez, Vice Chair. Testimony in support of Bill 138-35 CRR. Corey Chun, Government Relations Director, Hawaii Pacific, American Cancer Society, Cancer Action Network. Thank you for the opportunity to provide written testimony in support of Bill 138-35 COR, which includes electronic cigarettes and other smoking devices into the Natasha Protection Act, prohibiting smoking in public places and work environments. The American Cancer Society, Cancer Action Network, also known as ACS-CAN, is the nation's leading cancer advocacy organization. ACS CAN works with federal, state, and local government bodies to support evidence-based policy and legislative solutions designed to eliminate cancer as a major health problem. There are serious questions about the safety of inhaling the substances in e-cigarette aerosol. Studies have shown that the use of e-cigarettes can cause short-term lung changes and irritation. E-cigarettes also pose a potential risk to non-users through secondhand exposure to toxins in the aerosols. Secondhand exposures occur when the user exhales the aerosol, exposing the non-user. The level of secondhand exposure to a non-user depends on several factors, including the type of e-cigarette, concentration of the e-liquid, strength of the heating device, particle size in the aerosol, how the e-cigarette is used, and other environmental factors. ACS CAN advocates for comprehensive smoke-free workplace laws to protect workers and the public from harmful effects of secondhand exposure and to create communities that support tobacco-free living. The use of electronic cigarettes or e-cigarettes, including supposed non-nicotine e-cigarettes, should be prohibited in all workplaces, including restaurants and bars, to protect against secondhand exposure to nicotine and other potentially harmful chemicals, to ensure the enforcement of existing smoke-free laws are not compromised, and to ensure that public health benefits of smoke-free laws are not undermined. The use of e-cigarettes in workplaces, including restaurants and bars, can undermine the public health benefits that continue to be achieved by smoke-free laws. E-cigarette users who continue to use cigarette will not experience the health benefits of quitting, and non-users can be exposed to their secondhand aerosol. Because some of the e-cigarettes are designed to look like cigarettes and cigars, the unacceptability of smoking in public could be compromised, leading to a new user or a reduction in current user who quits. Additionally, from a practical standpoint, there may be difficulty when enforcing smoke-free laws if e-cigarette use is permitted. The risks do not prevent some e-cigarette manufacturers from specifically marketing their products for use in places where smoking is prohibited.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to also note for the record that we have received written testimony from Glynis Almonte on behalf of the Guam Diabetes Control Coalition. And now may I call on Ron Laguatnia.
Hafade Manilu, si Ronald Tenorio Laguatnia tu. Members of Loki ST NCD ni manahami dan si Kathy, si Liz, si Patrick, si Pete, dan Loki si Corey gi CANS, the Cancer Action Network. Si just masi no nayo ST na oportunidad para be fan testigo ni pabe supporti STI live pinaponi 13835 dan para u inamendi I 2005 I aktu para inadahin Natasha bonito I kwentus niya stisya I pumalo ni mantadong na palabras ni masasangan podesti I tasangan ni ti panmakin ni ti tatungo hafa malalak no slohuli na megay asu kumulili na megay asu malalak no kalan ni ji Jesus pepetsa na baba ne sa naturata na ji malalak no ji manadan asu gano liliagi malofan kareta za maliu gotpia manadan asu pete kafazua ko afana klasim kapakpak para afalo Pureno lo hungano supportisti za hutuna todo samzo na kitsi ni sumopottiesti hagas cicipazu loki mas di 20 anos la pomaro si tatao matai tatao put supa pureji matai gua ji chat humagung ne si etselu loki manasua gi gofesnya put supa pese jigi nagagi na sauno ju gini sa huli na pata adai mona I man famagonta gi mamamala na tempo etza da tibe mana mamu gini lo bonito esti za maulika zona silung zaneji pagi man chichipa pagu na lai ni para ma munga gi menan restaurant parafane sa magay stot buzu megen experience shakku now lili babe holum gi sagan tsumotsu pes man yutsupa ju siya na totogis jambi kalan kado ngingi ju nai ni na bababasin tekku pes etza babe songan na hu disesia nen pasa esti sogi menaulik para iman mamala siya na generation zana dangkulo na sejus maasi na unayo na sti na oportunidad sejus maasi.
Sejus Masi. I'd also like to recognize the presence of Senator Kelly Marsh-Teitzeno and the presence of Senator Clint Ridgell. Thank you, Senators, again for being here. We'll proceed now with testimony from DeMarco Kineni from the Guam Youth Congress.
Hafade Chairwoman Terlaje and esteemed Senators of the Committee on Health, Tourism, Historic Preservation, Land, and Justice. My name is DeMarco Thomas Kineni. I am a Guam Youth Congress representative from the municipality of Ordot Chalampago, and I'm here today on behalf of the Guam Youth Congress, the Guam Youth Congress Committee on Health, Human Services, and Gender Affairs, and the youth of Guam to testify in favor of Guam Legislature Bill 138-35. I commend Senator Shelton for introducing this measure, as we have a similar piece of legislation introduced in the Guam Youth Congress coming up for session also. As the primary sponsor of the Guam Youth Congress bill, I was elated to see this bill get a public hearing and was going up for debate. I see this as a public health and safety issue, as well as as vaping as an invitation to the youth when adults are allowed to vape or smoke in public places. Vaping amongst the youth of Guam has been a trend for the last couple of years. When the age limit for tobacco products and e-cigarettes was increased to 21 in 2018, I personally thought that vaping would die down as a trend. But because of the addictive substance nicotine, I personally saw even more people my age and younger participating in vaping because, quote unquote, everyone does it. And I believe that is one way to combat vaping and nicotine addiction in our youth is by regulating the visibility of those who vape. Although vaping is not as harmful on the body as maybe a cigarette, the only thing our lungs were meant to handle was oxygen and carbon dioxide. Smoking in any form scars the lungs and leads to more medical problems down the road, and we do not want vaping to continue to threaten the youth the same way cigarettes have for the past century. I believe in expanding the Natasha Protection Act of 2005 is a great step towards protecting the youth against this new epidemic. The U.S. Surgeon General recently issued an advisory about the e-cigarette epidemic among the youth. The advisory stated, in 2018, more than 3.6 million U.S. youths, including 1 in 5 high school students and 1 in 20 middle school students, currently use e-cigarettes. Nicotine exposure during adolescence can harm the developing brain, which continues to develop until age 25. The advisory states, nicotine exposure also impacts learning, memory, and attention. Using nicotine in adolescence can also increase risk for future addiction to other drugs. It is critical to raise awareness about vaping dangers on Guam. And then about 13.2% of US high school students reported vaping in the past 30 days when this survey was taken, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey for 2017. Guam reported double the use at 26.5%. So there is data and evidence that we have a problem, and I believe this bill is a good mandate to curb our current problem. I hope that the rest of the senators on this committee and in the Guam legislature take this seriously and help curb the problem so we do not have another generation addicted to nicotine. Sizus Masi, and thank you for allowing me to testify today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kineni. And now the Speaker of the Guam Youth Congress, Christian Valencia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Hafaday to all the senators here today. Thank you for being here. My name is Christian Valencia, and I am testifying in my capacity as Speaker of the 32nd Guam Youth Congress. I'm submitting this written testimony in support of Bill number 138-35 COR, which seeks to prohibit the use of electronic smoking devices wherever other tobacco products are already prohibited. First, I would like to commend Senator Amanda Shelton for introducing this important piece of legislation, and all members of Legislatura Guahan for signing on as co-sponsors. Your leadership and support of this bill sends a message to all of Guam's youth that you will protect them, the future of this island. Second, the Guam Youth Congress was at the forefront of this fight against tobacco and e-cigarettes. In 2017, we made a stand, along with many community action groups throughout the island, to support Speaker B.J. Cruz's Youth Protection Act, which sought to raise the minimum legal age for smoking to 21. We knew then that the fight was not over, that there was still so much more work to do. And there is still so much more work to do, especially when the United States Surgeon General declares that e-cigarette use in particular has become a major health concern among youth nationwide, that we have a public health epidemic on our hands. E-cigarettes entered the U.S. marketplace around 2007, and since 2014, they have been the most commonly used tobacco product among U.S. youth. Furthermore, studies have shown that advertising may also be renormalizing nicotine addiction. And in addition to nicotine, the aerosol that users inhale and exhale from e-cigarettes can potentially expose both themselves and bystanders to other harmful substances, including heavy metals, volatile organic compounds, and ultrafine particles that can be inhaled deeply into the lungs. To address the rising rates of vaping in high schools and middle schools, the Food and Drug Administration has recently moved toward a ban on flavored e-cigarettes, menthol cigarettes, and flavored cigars. And national advocacy is also prompting efforts to ban favored tobacco products that are clearly marketed toward and popular among young people. And on Guam, Bill 138 did not come at a more opportune time, especially when we're losing this daunting and unprecedented challenge. When local statistics showed that in 2015, 1 in 3, or 32.2% of high school students, and nearly 1 in 4, 23.1% of middle school students, reported current use. And that lifetime use of these products was 59.9% among high school students and 38.5% among middle school students. Bill number 138-35 COR is common sense legislation, and it will help us turn the tide in this fight. It will place Guam at the lead of such efforts to protect children and adults alike, while promoting the well-being and health of our community. Thank you very much for the opportunity to submit this testimony, Madam Chair. Sijus Masi.
Hagomas. We will now, I guess I'll thank the panel, and we'll ask for, oh no, sorry, before you leave, if I may ask if any of the senators have any questions for this panel? Thank you very much. Oh wait, one question, just a second.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank all the stakeholders for coming forward and providing testimony on this bill. Ms. Castro, I have a question for you. On page 3 of your testimony, you note that the Johns Hopkins Institute for Global Tobacco Control stated that 51 countries prohibit or restrict the use of e-cigarettes in public places. And then you go on to say that 7 countries prohibit the use of e-cigarettes in vehicles with minors. And it's my understanding that this body, in a previous legislature, we took up prohibiting smoking in a motor vehicle when a minor is present, and that was Bill 188-31 and became public law 31-102.
That's correct.
But it doesn't fall under the Natasha Protection Act.
It was the expansion of the Natasha Protection Act, but it also prohibited smoking where a pregnant woman was present in a vehicle.
Oh, excellent. Okay. And I guess I just wanted to ask all of the panel members if we were to, with the advice and consent of the chair and the author of this bill, if we were to add additional provisions to include those, both of
Definitely.
in a
Yes.
car when minors are present or when a pregnant woman is present, would
Definitely.
you be in favor of that?
Absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Laguanya? That's a Hongan. Mr. Kineni?
Absolutely.
And Speaker Valencia?
Absolutely, Senator.
Okay, great.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. And maybe that's something that we can consider. Sujus Masi.
Thank you. If you could, Mr. Valencia, also submit your testimony, that would be great, so all the senators could get a copy. And I want to thank you for the Guam statistics that you put in there. Very relevant and helpful. Sitosmasi. If I may now call Aubrey Magdalera and our Director of the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, Ms. Therese Arreola. Okay. Ms. Magdalera.
Hafide and Suzuis Ma'asi Senator. My name is Aubrey Magdalera. I am 14 years old, and I'm an incoming freshman at the Academy of Our Lady of Guam. And from what I'm told, I'm also the same age as this incredible young woman who's being honored by this bill, Natasha, when she died. And I just want to say that I feel very blessed to be here and in honor of this, in support of this bill, and to also be reminded that, you know, how lucky we are to be able to breathe the air that we breathe every single day, and that it's important to preserve it. On Island Leadership Day that took place on April 22nd, 2019, I had the incredible opportunity to be Senator Shelton's counterpart, and I introduced a similar bill with knowledge and hope that it will only do good for the people of Guam. We are aware of the many harmful effects of vaping in general, such as nicotine addiction, lung and heart disease, while also being at high risk of strokes or heart attacks. As we know, there are many cons of vaping, but most especially the fact that when done in public, it is already considered secondhand vaping for others around who are inhaling this vapor and being exposed to dangerous chemicals. Besides the many health risks that vaping brings, teens and kids my age who are exposed to vape have already turned to doing it. I feel that this bill is not only a way to preserve the health and safety of Guam, but also in order to preserve its future society, the youth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Magdalera. I also want to acknowledge that we have written testimony from Linda Sablon Flynn, and she's also indicated her support of the bill. And now our director, Therese Arreola.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Senator Shelton, senators present, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to provide testimony on behalf of Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. First of all, before I begin, I'd just like to recognize how difficult it might have been for Senator Shelton to craft this bill, being so close to its namesake. And so, as a young freshman senator, I just want to tell you that we're so very proud of you. And I have to bring up the fact that probably, you know, I've been around the legislature for a long time, and the very surprising and wonderful difference today is we have a lot of young people speaking up. And so that's a testimony that the times have changed. And I have a perfect example here. And we have Youth Congress present, many young senators. And I think it's very evident that the time has come when people are just recognizing that trends are over and fads are a day of something old, and we need to start thinking about our health and our families with regards to our health. I definitely have gone through a medical family health condition earlier this year, know very much the beauty of life and acknowledging the fact that every breath we take is a gift from God. And so with that, many of the previous speakers have mentioned a lot of the data that I have included in my testimony. You all have a copy, but for the record, I would just like, if you would like me to read it, I can read it, but you all have copies. And basically, bottom line is the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center Prevention Office has always been in the forefront of providing prevention work when it comes to alcohol and tobacco use among young adults as well as adults. And we will continue to do so. and we continue to do so with your support. And I know all 15 of you who signed up are very supportive. I have not heard one senator ever say that they are against helping in the drug and alcohol addiction epidemic that our island is going through. So for the record, Guam Behavioral Health is in full support of this bill and the intent of the bill, and I just want to encourage the passage at the next session. Let's not waste any more time, and let's continue to save lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director Ariola. And thank you again, Ms. Magdalena. It's great to see you here during your summer break, and very proud of what you're doing today. Senator Shelton?
Thank you very much, Ms. Ariola, for providing testimony on behalf of the department. We very much appreciate your support, and we look forward to continue our partnership with you so that we can help young people stay away from these different harms. And Aubrey, thank you very much for being here. You were, instrumental in helping us to craft this legislation. As you said, on Island Leadership Day, this was something that you were also very passionate about, and you received overwhelming support from your colleagues on the floor. And today, I'm very thankful to have all of these co-sponsors as well who supported in the same way that you all did as Youth on Island Leadership Day. So thank you very much for being here and for speaking out for your peers.
Senator Lee?
Thank you very much, Audrey, for sharing your thoughts with us and for taking the time to provide testimony. And I also just want to thank the members of the Guam Youth Congress that came and provided their testimony. It also provided some local statistics, which is always good. We want to make sure that we have the data in front of us. And Ms. Ariola, thank you for your continued support of our youth as they battle drug and alcohol addiction. I know that's been a charge of yours for many years during your role at Sanctuary and now at Behavioral Health. So thank you very much for coming to the table and providing your support for this bill. Situs Masi.
Speaker Munya Barnes.
Situs Masi, Madam Chair, for giving me the opportunity. I want to extend my thank yous to all of you who presented testimony here today in support of Senator Amanda Shelton's bill. And it is very, very rewarding to know that the Guam Youth Congress continues to step up to the plate to give their testimonies and support. Having you, Ms. Aubrey, help to literally work on this bill with Senator Shelton is amazing. And it's because of leaders like you that we are comfortable as scientists like us that the next generation will truly protect our future generations to come. And I'm just so happy. So, Undunkel and Asitos Masi and Mrs. Ariola was right. Let's not take any more, when we go into session next week, we have all 15 members who initiated off on this bill. Let's get it done right away and send it up to the governors, because I'm sure that she will definitely support this effort with our Lieutenant Governor. So, Sitos Masian, thank you for the great leadership that you have exemplified to our listening audience, because leadership is strong, and the young woman that you are, and being able to have met you during Youth Month, you are incredible. Sanamasi, Madam Chair, for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senator Taitano? Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Rajel? Any? Thank you. If I may, Director Ariola, I wanted to just read 2 paragraphs from yours, or if you could read your last 2 paragraphs, the ones about the comprehensive approach. I think beginning there is something that we haven't really put on the record today.
Guam Behavioral Health?
Yeah. I mean, yes, I think that would be, I'd just like to put it on the record for everyone listening. Sure. To know that there's still much work to do in this regard.
Sure. Guam Behavioral Health Prevention Branch provides training, technical assistance, educational opportunities for program managers, community leaders, and youth and adult volunteers on enhancing and promoting mental wellness to reduce and prevent alcohol, tobacco, and other drug use, and other co-related problems. Guam Behavioral Health, of course, fully supports the intent of this bill.
Yeah, Director Ariola, on page 2, you start to talk about the CDC recommendation for a comprehensive approach. Yes, thank you.
Under restrictions on e-cigarette use in restaurants, bars, and work sites in the U.S. and territories, according to the CDC, as of September 30, 2017, 400 localities in 8 states, the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico, prohibit e-cigarette use in restaurants, bars, and work sites. The CDC recommends a comprehensive approach to reducing health risk posed by e-cigarettes among youth, to include policies and strategies that reduce use, initiation of e-cigarettes, and reduce youth exposure to e-cigarette aerosol. These strategies may include regulating sales, marketing, advertising, and displays, increasing taxes, increasing education on the harm of e-cigarettes, and restricting e-cigarette use in areas youth would be exposed. Thank you.
And then you go on to provide that what the behavioral health does for
Yes,
the
correct.
community in this regard, and that you are available for training of
Training and
throughout the community, schools, community groups.
Absolutely. The Department of Guam Behavioral Health is here to help. We have a very strong relationship already with the Guam Department of Education. We do numerous outreach and numerous trainings with its counselors and its teachers. Every day we look forward to enhancing those partnerships. And why the obvious partnership of Guam Department of Education is because we're very lucky that we have one school district that takes care of all of our school children, 33,000 plus. And so that partnership is an obvious partnership to have. And so we work on strengthening that every day. We work very closely with Nadine Cepeda, their psychologist, and we have very strong relationships with the DOE administration. And so we need to take care of our kids. We need to take care of their health, and we need to ensure, those of us who are adults, that if we choose to smoke or drink alcohol, whatever it may be, in this case smoke, that we need to do it with the mindset that there are people around us. And I love what you said, Senator Shelton, earlier when you said in your opening remarks that my right as a person is affected when somebody else enters my space with their smoke. And that goes with either a smoker or a non-smoker. You know, I know a lot of smokers who are very, very, really responsible smokers, actually. They don't even smell like smoke. And I know that they smoke because they're very mindful of not doing it in front of people, not doing it in the car, not doing it in restaurants. That I always say, why don't you just quit? Because you barely do it. So we just need to be mindful. And I think, again, this legislation doesn't take away from rights. It just makes sure that the rights of an individual who decide to smoke does not affect the life of another.
Thank you again. I'd like to also note for the record that signed up in support of the bill is Angelina Mummert, Welly Meyer, and Renata Bertalio. And we also received written testimony from John Fernandez from Guam Department of Education. And I also want to note for the record that legal counsel's preliminary recommendation is that in the definition of smoking in 90103N, it includes the inhaling, exhaling, or burning any lighted or heated plant product, but does not define plant product. And so he was recommending that we further clarify that. So I am open to recommendations from any of you that are here working in this field, and we will work with the sponsor to include that. Yes?
Madam Chair, if I can speak to that
Sure.
point, your last point. Today it's e-cigarettes, tomorrow the marketing folks get very, very creative. And so pretty soon it's going to be gummy bears and edibles and everything else. And so thank you for mentioning that, because I think we might want to expand the legislation to include some of those possibilities. Because if not, then unfortunately future legislature or yourselves will have to come back and keep amending the bill. So I think we need to think out of the box and think about all the possible ways that nicotine can be marketed and included in the legislation, in the change.
Thank you again. Would you like to close, Senator?
Seduce Masi, Madam Chair, and thank you to everyone who is here today to provide testimony. I'd especially like to thank Natasha's mother, Jenny Leon Guerrero Garrett, who came, everyone here from the non-communicable disease group. Thank you very much for providing your testimony. The Guam Youth Congress. I see one of our classmates, Gianna Pangilinan, who I know who is here in support of the bill and to carry on Natasha's legacy. And so I wanted to say thank you very much to everyone, and especially to you, Madam Chair, and to all of the colleagues who have supported this. I look forward in the next couple of weeks to work with you on some amendments to include the smoking in minors with cars, as well as the ban for smoking at the doorways of entrances to public places. In June 2006, Natasha passed away. So this month, that would be 13 years. We just celebrated her death anniversary. And every year, her mom, Jenny, and I, we get together. We celebrate her birthday and we celebrate her death anniversary. And we like to talk about things that we remember about her and the blessings that she brought to our life. And today, hearing all of this testimony in support of this measure has really, filled me with so much emotion to know that what she fought for, not just for herself, but for others who were in a similar situation, that's just an amazing thing to see that continued here today. When I was 16, I wrote a reflection that was included in Natasha's book. Maybe some of you have seen it. It's called Let Go and Let God. And her mom put it together after she passed to tell her story and to talk about what she fought for and what she believed in. And at that time, I said that Natasha always wanted to make sure that I was responsible in making the right choices. Knowing that I had someone like Tosh who cared so deeply for me made me see what a great and compassionate person she was. I will always remember her as being caring, and when she would get mad at me, I now realize that it was only because she was watching out for me. And I know that today she's someone who's still watching out for me, and not only for me, but our entire community. So I'm very honored to be able to do this in her honor and to continue to protect, as the representatives from the Guam Youth Congress said, to do this for our youth, but for our entire community who deserve to be able to breathe in clean air and enjoy this beautiful paradise that we have. So, Sejus Masi, Madam Chair.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Senators. There being no additional individuals to present further testimony on this bill, the committee will accept testimony until June 28. You may submit testimony to my office directly at the Ada Plaza Center, Suite 207, 173 Aspinall Avenue, 96910, or the mailroom here at the Guam Legislature, or through email at senatorterlajeguam@gmail.com. Thank you again to all of you who came to testify on this bill. Sejus Masi. We are going to continue with the public hearing on Bill number 68-35, introduced by Speaker Tina Muñoz-Barnes. And if I could ask the speaker to introduce the bill.
Sejus Masi, Madam Chair, again for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of Bill number 88-35 CR is introduced by Tina Rose Munya Barnes, an act to amend Section 72157B of Chapter 72, Title 11, Guam Code Annotated, and Sections 24101 and 24102, and add a new Section 24108 to Chapter 24, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to exempting home kitchens licensed as a home industry from sanitation laws and stipulating requirements for these home kitchens. Madam Chair, as we look for new economic growth for our residential entrepreneurs, we have to think outside of the box to find solutions to the economy and create this atmosphere for new entrepreneurs. Bill number 88-35 is a measure, I hope, that will stimulate the economy, making it easier for budding entrepreneurs to start their own business. Contrary to what the public thinks, the cottage food industry is not something new to our island. We are all familiar, Madam Chair, and aware of these types of businesses because many of us grew up buying and eating foods from home kitchen operations. Cottage food is a part of our culture. Many of us know someone who makes the best food, whether it's rosquetti or guzzeria, cakes, empanadas, and banelas. We buy from these people to support them, even though we are well aware that they aren't fully licensed to operate. We take the risk of eating homemade food because our family members or friends will not intentionally want to harm us. We trust them with our health when eating their food. This is why under these provisions, cottage food producers are allowed to sell directly to the customer. Wholesaling of products is not allowed. Coupled with the labeling requirements stating the food is not inspected by the Department of Public Health and Social Services, the customer becomes what the bill describes as an informed end user. We further detail in the law that only certain foods can be exempted from sanitation laws. Foods considered not potentially hazardous or foods that don't require temperature control are the only food items allowed to be sold. Things like chicken, calaguin, tuna, egg sandwiches, and corn soup will be considered potentially hazard foods and not allowed under these provisions. This law will give them a pathway to develop and grow their businesses so that eventually they can be contributing members to our tax base. Owning a business is risky, especially a food business. I know that there are so many laws and regulations that entrepreneurs have to follow. Food entrepreneurs would have to invest thousands of dollars upgrading their home kitchen to a commercial kitchen on a concept that they aren't sure would be viable to begin with. Yes, many aren't willing to take the risks or make the investment out of fear of failure, and this bill will take that take away that fear. This will allow entrepreneurs to test their products without having to take out a mortgage to build a commercial kitchen in their home. It will give them the pathway to prove to investors and banks that their product is viable with actual results, and we make it easier for food entrepreneurs to be successful. When the concept is proven viable and successful, the food entrepreneur will grow their operations and even establish a commercial presence outside of their homes. When we empower our local entrepreneurs to be successful, our local economy will grow. Local entrepreneurs buy local and support local as much as they can. And I want to say additionally, this law, if passed, will help families subsidize their household budgets by selling their homemade food products every so often. Many families could really use additional income to help supplement their household needs. We already see the successes of food entrepreneurs at various village festivals. We aren't adding anything new to our code. Food handling in home industry is already allowed. We are simply clarifying that the Department of Public Health and Social Services wouldn't have to tell the residential homes to renovate their kitchen for a very small-scale operation that is not of a commercial business. And, of course, 5 sections to the bill, Madam Chair, and I know that this discussion will probably bring both support and opposition, and I'm willing to sit here and listen to the opportunity and hopefully strengthen the bill for its future passage. Sizulis Masi for literally taking the time to hear this bill, Madam Chair. Thank you, and I want to note for the record, as we continue to promote the Guam Youth Congress, this idea was literally worked on by the Vice Speaker at that time, Vice Speaker Keandra McDonald, who was working with this, brought this to our committee and said that she felt it was really important. I want to say for the record that she has stepped up to the plate, has left the legislature and Youth Congress to adventure into a new business opportunity, one that takes it from both concepts, from selling commodities to also selling baked goods. But she understands that there are a lot of young business entrepreneurs who truly have a hard time, and this might be one of those ways to help. So I'm really hoping that I can hear testimony from the community. Sainamasi.
Thank you, Speaker. If I may now call on those who've signed up to testify. Everyone who signed up, you may have a seat up here at the table. And I want to thank all of you for your patience in getting to this bill. Thank you for waiting this afternoon. And we will begin with the representative from the Department of Public Health and Social Services, Mr. Tom Nadeau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Ruggiero, Senator Shelton, Senator Lee, and Madam Speaker. Thank you. Hafaday. My name is Tom Nadeau. I am the Chief Environmental Public Health Officer with the Division of Environmental Health of the Department of Public Health and Social Services. Director Linda Ampinco Donorsi and I thank you for allowing the department to present our testimony for Bill 88-35, which proposed to amend Section 72157B of Chapter 72, Title 11 Guam Code Annotated, and Sections 24101 and 24102, and add a new Section 24108 to Chapter 24, Title 10 GCA, relative to exempting home kitchens licensed as a home industry from sanitation laws and stipulating requirements from these home kitchens. The Department of Public Health and Social Services has reviewed Bill 88-35, and while the department understands the intent of this bill, we do not support this bill. As you know, this department, through the activities of our Division of Environmental Health, has been entrusted to protect the public from diseases and other adverse health conditions caused by the consumption of contaminated foods. The division does this through the regulatory control of commercial food facilities, such as eating and drinking establishments and food manufacturers. The adoption and enactment of Bill 88-35 would undermine and contradict the very purpose why food safety laws and regulations exist. The hallmark of an effective food safety program has always been the enactment of robust legislations to protect consumers. To eliminate regulatory oversight of any food manufacturing process, including what Bill 88-35 defines as not, quote, potentially hazardous food, is to invite increased risk of potential foodborne illness outbreaks occurring on our island. According to US CDC, there are 48 million cases of foodborne disease in the United States annually that lead to 128,000 hospitalizations and 3,000 deaths every year. The economic burden from such diseases has been estimated to be between 15 billion to 77 billion annually. Viruses, particularly noroviruses, cause more foodborne illnesses than any other pathogen in the United States. In fact, norovirus, also known as gastroenteritis or the stomach flu, is one of the top 5 foodborne pathogens that causes the most death around the world. Because norovirus is just that a virus, it doesn't require nutrients and moisture to proliferate like bacteria. It simply needs a human host. As a result, norovirus and hepatitis A, which is another foodborne virus, can be transmitted via consumption of potentially hazardous food and non-potentially hazardous food, and by nearly any surface that become contaminated with the virus. Thus, Bill 88-35 will still threaten the health and safety of the community. The spread of foodborne pathogens, especially those categorized as fecal-oral pathogens, such as norovirus and hepatitis A, is mainly due to poor hygiene of the food handler and not the type of foods being prepared. Transmission occurs when food handlers prepare food while infected. The infectivity of norovirus is so great that it takes less than 10 viral particles to make someone sick. To put this into perspective, it is believed that it takes about 100 million E. coli bacteria and between 100,000 to 1 million salmonella bacteria to make someone ill. What's particularly concerning about norovirus is that this virus can contaminate surfaces, even infect a nearby person when it becomes aerosolized from the vomiting of a sick person. The Guam Food Code, which is mirrored after the US FDA Model Food Code, compels a food handler to inform his or her employer if diagnosed with or even possibly exposed to norovirus or hepatitis A. The potential for an ill food handler to infect others with norovirus or Hep A is such a concern that the Guam Food Code mandates that the establishment prohibit that ill food handler from even entering the facility as an employee. Many foodborne disease transmissions occur because sick food handlers have failed to wash their hands while preparing foods. During a fecal-oral transmission of norovirus or hepatitis A virus, the victim is literally fed the feces of an ill person that's contaminated with millions of these viruses via unclean hands. Therefore, allowing foods that are deemed not potentially hazardous to be prepared and sold without any regulatory control, as written in Bill 88-35, can still expose food diseases to people on Guam and our visiting tourists. And speaking of our tourists, how many of them will actually read or even can read the labeling as proposed in Bill 88-35, which warns them that foods were prepared without any regulatory oversight? Even if they do and can read the labeling, will our visitors truly understand the potential dangers of eating such unregulated foods? Also, foodborne diseases are not caused by biological contaminants alone. Physical contaminants, such as broken glass, metal shavings, and pieces of plastic can be unknowingly introduced in foods and cause trauma to the gastrointestinal system. Also, chemical contaminants from pesticides and other common household poison can easily lead to death if accidentally added to food and ingested. When our health inspectors inspect a food facility, they do not only assess the food that are prepared and served, but also the establishment's equipment, plumbing, lighting, ventilation, storage, and other physical requirements to ensure environmental standards have been met. If Bill 88-35 is passed and enacted, who will inspect these home kitchens in ensuring that food handlers are washing their hands, not storing and using household pesticides in the kitchen, they're repairing their damaged equipment, and not working when they're sick? Once again, a person does not need to consume potentially hazardous foods to become gravely ill from foodborne diseases. Assuming Bill 88-35 becomes law, and there's a foodborne illness outbreak linked to a meal prepared in a home kitchen, who will investigate the facility to confirm the source of the outbreak, or to stop the outbreak, or even prevent it from reoccurring if these home kitchens are not regulated? This department would not have any authority to access and inspect the kitchen and collect environmental samples for any laboratory testing. Let's further assume that the department was able to confirm that the home kitchen was the source of the outbreak. What authority does the Division of Environmental Health have in stopping this unregulated kitchen from continuing its operation? In addition to the inspection of restaurants, food manufacturers, and other health-regulated establishments, the Division of Environmental Health responds to public nuisance complaints occurring in our villages. These village complaints have included improper disposal of garbage and human excrement, creation of rodent harborage sites, foul odor, presence of pigs and other livestock on residential properties, and myriad of other unsanitary conditions. We've inspected private premises where the house had no running water and/or power, and its occupants suspected of defecating in their yard. We've also witnessed homes with rodent harborage sites created by debris and other overgrown vegetation in their yard. What would prevent a person who lived in such conditions from operating a licensed home kitchen if Bill 88-35 was to pass? Also, please be reminded that some people keep pets in their homes. Existing regulations prohibit non-service animals in food facilities. Bill 88-35 can essentially allow a private homeowner without any running water or functioning toilet where pets are present to prepare foods deemed not potentially hazardous using damaged, unclean equipment and utensils. We must also remember that meals prepared for commercial endeavors may be consumed by individuals from a highly susceptible population, such as children whose immune systems are still developing, among uncles with weakened or deteriorating health, and people with pre-existing medical conditions that make them particularly vulnerable from infections. And please be reminded that Guam has high rates of chronic diseases. We all want to believe or hope that food made in private kitchens of our friends, families, co-workers, and neighbors are sanitary, and I'm sure many are, but we suspect some are not. This will be the same for licensed home kitchens under proposed provisions of Bill 88-33. U.S. CDC reported that there were 2,416 foodborne illness outbreaks, 40,848 illnesses, 3,579 hospitalizations, and 100 deaths attributed to food prepared in homes and residences from 1998 to 2016, which demonstrate that private kitchens have been source of illnesses and outbreaks. In a 2017 study by Baruso and Quinlan, found that 45% of home kitchens tested positive for a foodborne pathogen, and 12% had more than one pathogen present. Just a few months ago, this department had issued a press release notifying the public of a shigellosis outbreak on Guam. In only 4 months, Guam had reached 1/2 the total number of cases from all of last year. 2/3 of this year's cases involved children who were taken to the emergency rooms. Shigellosis is also a fecal-oral pathogen associated with poor hygiene and sanitation. Obviously, the question of sanitation can also be said about food that's prepared in a regulated facility with a sanitary permit. But these permitted facilities have been evaluated by the department before approval and was given to operate, and they can be inspected any time for any legitimate reason by inspectors. It's no secret that the Division of Environmental Health is greatly challenged in conducting routine inspections of health-regulated establishments, but inspections are still being performed nonetheless. Passing Bill 88-35 will only add to the potential threat of foodborne illness to our people. It only takes a single outbreak to adversely affect hundreds of people, just like the largest foodborne illness outbreak the division had ever investigated in the last 30 years, which occurred in 2011. During that outbreak, over 350 students from 5 public schools became ill with vomiting, abdominal cramps, and diarrhea. Fortunately, in the last 5 years, there have been no reported confirmed cases of a foodborne illness occurring on the island. And some of that success may be attributed to our food safety education activities and our stringent health certificate regulations and the Guam Food Code. These 2 regulations place rigorous safeguards in protecting the public from foodborne diseases. However, this does not mean that no one has gotten sick from foodborne illness in the last 5 years. In fact, we are almost certain there have been several cases, but simply not reported, as many gastrointestinal ailments are self-limiting and because some originate from private functions, which we do not regulate and investigate. According to our former epidemiologist, many foodborne illnesses were the result of the consumption of meals that were prepared in private kitchens, not in commercial establishments, which is another reason why Bill 88-35 may not be in the best interest of the public. Another reason why we have not had any reported outbreaks in the last 5 years may be that we've simply been extremely lucky, especially when you consider that our Division of Environmental Health has been able to conduct only a small fraction of the required number of sanitation inspections of food facilities. As a result, the division focuses its resources into education and prioritizing programs and activities based on health risks to the public. Yet, as last year's inspection results have shown us, routine inspections are still necessary of all food facilities, regardless of their size, operation, or the type of meals prepared and served. In fiscal year 2018, sanitary permits of 40 food facilities were suspended because of excessive violations and/or pest infestations, and nearly all of them were categorized as non-priority establishments, since these establishments did not cater to highly susceptible population. These establishments were inspected and subsequently suspended because of complaints from the public. Hence, had the Division of Environmental Health had not been informed of these establishments' unsanitary conditions and practices from concerned citizens, it is likely that the division will not discover these violations until years later. This is why our office welcomes and encourages reporting of unsanitary conditions, establishments, and the public has been an extra set of eyes and ears in identifying non-compliant establishments. However, such assistance from the community may not occur for home kitchens that operate under the provision of Bill 88-35, since these unregulated businesses would not be readily accessed and observed even by the general public. Existing food businesses that are permitted with our department, whether they prepare potentially hazardous food or non-potentially hazardous foods, or whether they are a large business or small business, have spent thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to meet sanitation requirements. It's not a simple and easy endeavor to open and operate a food facility, and it shouldn't be. Not when such businesses are entrusted to prepare and serve safe food to our population, and Bill 88-35 undermines and endangers that trust. Aside from the concerns the department had just stated, we have other concerns and questions with Bill 88-35. For example, page 3, lines 7 through 8. Please note that the selling of food would also fall under Title 10 GCA Chapter 23, thus a sanitary permit may still be required of these home kitchens. Page 3, lines 22 to 24, under Section 3 of the bill, provides a definition of potentially hazardous. The proposed definition is inadequate and inconsistent with the updated terminology and definition found in the existing food code. In the Guam Food Code, it is called potentially hazardous food, time temperature control for safety of food, or TCS for short. TCS includes foods and treatment of foods not associated with temperature control, but its water activity and acidity. It is a science-based definition that has been accepted by regulators across the nation and the food industry. If the proposed definition of potentially hazardous was enacted by Bill 88-33, it may void the definition in the Guam Food Code, which was adopted by regulation, and our ability to effectively regulate all establishments. Pages 4 through 5 under Section 4. Aside from our non-support of the proposed Section 24102D of the bill, we believe the insertion of the word regularly in the proposed labeling statement of Section 24102D4D would be inaccurate and false, since it implies that the licensed home kitchen is inspected by this department, but only infrequently, when in reality such facility cannot be inspected at all by DPHSS. Page 5, lines 10 through 11 under Section 4. Bill 88-33 places a threshold on the annual gross sale of food that a licensed kitchen is permitted, which is no more than $20,000. We do not believe the determination and enforcement of this provision should be the responsibility of the Department of Public Health and Social Services. This will be another unfunded mandate of the department and place additional burden to the Division of Environmental Health. Page 5, line 12 under Section 4. In the proposed Section 24102D4D6, each food handler is required to possess a health certificate. Yet, the proposed insertion of Section 72157B under Section 2 on page 2, lines 21 through 22 of this bill seems to suggest that a health certificate is not required for those employed at a licensed home kitchen. Page 5, line 17 under Section 5. As commented earlier, the use and defining of potentially hazardous as proposed in Bill 88-33 will likely impact the application of the Guam Food Code and our ability to regulate certain foods. Page 5, lines 20 and page 6, lines 1 through page 5, line 20, page 6, lines 1 through 2, under Section 5. The proposed Section 24108C states that the Department of Public Health and Social Services may enforce sanitary permit requirements of licensed kitchen facility, quote, if said entity fails to comply with any provisions of regulations governing food handling in the home industry or fails to maintain their home in a clean, healthful, and sanitary condition, unquote. This proposed provision cannot be enforced and somewhat disingenuous in its intent. Because these businesses will not be regulated and inspected by the department, it will be difficult, if not impossible, for us to know the sanitary conditions of these kitchens. Page 5, line 19 under Section 5. The reference section should read Section 24102D4, not D3. Page 5, lines 8 through 12 under Section 5. These paragraphs need to be renumbered to follow the previous page. And finally, page 2, line 20 under Section 2. This is not part of the bill's amendments. The second health certificate that's referenced in that line probably meant sanitary permit, not a health certificate. For all the reasons provided, the Department of Public Health Services strongly opposes Bill 88-35. The bill threatens the safety of the people of Guam and our visitors. We are aware that some areas of the U.S. have adopted similar laws, but we're also aware that many, if not all, of those jurisdictions' health departments had opposed or expressed great reservation in allowing unregulated commercial kitchens to operate. Bill 88-35 is not what the people of Guam needs. Instead, our people deserve just the opposite of what this bill proposes. What Guam needs is a legislation that will lead to more frequent inspections of not only food manufacturers and retailers, but also other health-regulated establishments, such as cosmetic establishments, public pools, institutional facilities, and many others that go without routine inspections. I apologize for the long testimony I provided, but our department is extremely passionate about this bill and our opposition. We believe it's not in the best interest of the people of Guam and our island visitors. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide testimony to Bill 88-35. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nadeau. We now hear from Vanji Lujan.
Thank you so much. My name is Vanji Lujan, and I'm with the Guam Water Works Authority. And unlike my previous speaker, my testimony will be very short because our written testimony will be provided by our general manager, but we did want to weigh in on the concerns that GWA has with the bill. So thank you so much for the opportunity to provide comments on Bill 88-35. Although GWA understands the intent of Bill 88-35, GWA cannot support the bill in its current form. GWA's primary responsibility and concern is the protection of public health to all the residents of Guam. This includes the provision of the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Guam Primary Drinking Water Regulations, and the Clean Water Act. I know a lot of people are wondering, what would GWA be interested in this bill? But in fact, we are very interested because of the ramification, what happens as a result of improper disposal of fats, oil, and grease within our own systems. Senator Shelton and I were just reminded about our jingle, "Don't Clog with Fog," and that was really for residences because we are seeing an increase in the number of people improperly disposing fats, and a lot of people just dump it down their drain, and they don't know that you are allowed to collect your oil and deposit it at the Harmon substation under the solid waste management. Under the Clean Water Act, it requires that proper safe collection, treatment, and disposal of wastewater. Among the issues involved in the collection of wastewater is the need to protect failure of the collection system that can result in untreated wastewater where human exposure becomes possible. GWA is concerned that exempting a home industry from sanitary laws or stipulating reduced requirements in home kitchens will lead to an increase in fats, oils, and grease in our wastewater system, which is the primary cause of sanitary sewer overflows due to sewer pipes clogging in residential areas. Currently, GWA recommends that a grease removal device, or GRD, is installed in food service establishments, including home industries. Fog is introduced into the sewer system through food preparation, cooking, and cleaning. Significant fog is generated from residential kitchens. Fog solidifies in the sewer system and hardens the walls of the pipes, therefore retarding the blockage of flow. It clings to the components of our pump stations and our wastewater treatment plants. Buildup in fog in the sewer lines and in treatment plants is a leading cause of sewer blockage and sanitary sewer overflows within GWA's wastewater collection system. Fog in our sewer system causes a hazard to public health and environmental concerns. Sometimes you will see that when we have a big sewer overflow, we have to prevent it from entering into our oceans, as well as rivers and streams, as well as people playing in it, because it's raw sewage or treated sewage, and that becomes a big problem. Therefore, to adequately protect the public health and prevent sewer overflows in the environment, GWA is required to implement a fog program.
The FOG program was developed to reduce the introduction of fog into the sewer system and combat fats, oils, and grease problems throughout GWA's system. It's an incumbent under our Clean Water Act as well as our National Pollution Discharge Emission System, or NPDES permit, that we ensure that waste coming to our treatment plant is normal sanitary sewer. So it requires under our NPDES permit that we in fact create this FOG program and enforce it to ensure grease control measures are monitored and implemented appropriately. On an average, FOG causes substantially 60% of all sanitary sewer overflows are as a result of fog. Last year alone, we had 124 sewer overflows that was a direct result of fog in the system. We are required then to report those to US EPA, and if it enters into any wetland or any kind of environmental into the environment, either through the oceans, streams, rivers, wetlands, we also engage Guam EPA because a cleanup will have to occur no matter the amount. In addition, GWA, Guam EPA, and US EPA have identified areas where if you have more than I believe it's 2 incidences along the same area, which is specifically like a manhole, we have these things, areas called hotspots, where we will then put it on a list. Currently, we have 47 hotspots, which get additional cleaning, because right now that is the only method for us to manage the fog within the sanitary sewer and our collection system. For the most part, spillages related to fog or any type of spillages is preventable, provided that we have adequate supervision of what goes into the wastewater system and the discharge. It requires monitoring and sanitary requirements that public health as well as Guam EPA monitor within commercial food services. GWA manages the system, and it has become increasingly difficult. As we have discussed, GWA is not in favor of the bill. However, we would make additional recommendations, which includes that home kitchen licenses and the home industry will still be required to install properly sized grease removal devices and allow for routine inspection in those kitchens with GWA source control program. One of the things that we also see is that when a spill occurs within a commercial area as well as in a residential area, GWA goes to up and downstream of 1,000 feet from that particular spill, and we engage with all the residents within that. We put door hangers if they're not there, but also talk to the residences. If it occurs in a hotspot area and there's food establishments, we are then required to inspect all of the food establishments for compliance with our FOG program. And then we would work with those customers to ensure that that they come into compliance and that they're able to clean out their grease traps. And so I think that really our biggest concern is to ensure that our wastewater collection system is well maintained, and that we're having an aging infrastructure right now with our sewer systems. And our concern is that additional residences will increase the amount of fat that is going down in our system. I know we talked about goodgeria being one of those probably not so hazardous product. However, it takes a lot of oil to fry goodgeria, buñuelos, empanada, lumpia. And so what we are also seeing is that when we conduct public oil collection, we see a lot of oil. People collect it along in their homes, and you've done it. We've collected in containers, and when we have it, they all bring it to us. And some people have pickup loads of this, and those are the responsible ones. But a lot of people just empty it down their drain. And so I think that this bill, we're concerned that will encourage poor practices like that, because they're not going to be required to put the grease removal device in their kitchen. Thank you very much, and we will be providing written testimony within the next couple of weeks, or perhaps next week. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the written testimony, and thanks to both of you for your testimony. Speaker, oh, may I have that list? Yeah, if I'd also just like to recognize that also signed in support of the bill is Jane Ray, and against the bill, Mary Lou Scroggs, Catherine Duenas. And Speaker, if you'd like to.
Madam Chair, and if I may include the testimonies for support from Kimberly A. Diego. She submitted written testimony, and also Lourdes B. Augustine in support of the measure. I do want to note that I did expect this coming from the agencies, but maybe one of my comments would be that out of the nation, 48 states all have a food cottage provision in their books, and the only states that don't have it are Hawaii and New Jersey. In the efforts of growing the small business entrepreneur business and helping those who've been baking and selling their homemade products to and from the stores, it just kind of maybe puzzles me, because maybe one of the questions I might like to ask Public Health is can you confirm without a doubt that those foods that are made by homes right now, that they have been previewed by Public Health, and how many home businesses who have home industry licenses are issued here for food handling here on Guam at this time?
So, Speaker, you're asking how many private kitchens?
Home businesses.
How many of them are permitted?
How many are, yes.
Permitted. Yes, I guess that's what I mean, yeah. I'm sorry, she'll look up the data for you.
So
yeah.
Different between manufacturing and commercial versus selling, not the everyday thing of vanillas and those things. I mean, I gave examples earlier that those that have to be temperatured and all that not, or whether it be cold or hot, are not included, like the eggs and the tuna and the Kelagwins. But those like the empanadas and the rosquettis and the baked goods, two different, again, food categories. And again, this is a tradition that's been happening for many generations, many decades. I mean, many generations, these secret recipes and ingredients have been passed on, and they continue to be sold today from our homes. And I'm just wanting to see, knowing that sometimes what successes you have in other parts of the United States, 48 jurisdictions have legislation to this effect, 48. And even the territories have it, and just 2. Well, Guam makes 3. And we just wanted to make sure, I mean, the industry is already there, but it's just giving that opportunity. I'm not looking for those, I'm looking for the ones to every now and then sell at the mom and pop, or those that stroll by here that sell their homemade. Oh, my mom made this taquitos, my mom made that bruschetti, and we're selling it, those cookies.
So the data you asked, Speaker, it's 252. If this is about a cultural issue, then I think there are other avenues to address this. But if it's about making money or small amounts of money for the small business or those who want to operate small business, there are other opportunities as well. For example, I know every time we have a village festival and there are a lot of food vendors, I know the mayors has always brought to our attention how restrictive we are. And the response has always been, well, there are other avenues that could be made available. For example, I know some of these mayors, their office, they have a kitchen. And if with proper renovation and the right amount of investment, they can have a centralized, approved, permitted kitchen to allow their constituents to operate on that. It's not like an everyday operation, of course, maybe primarily during their village festivals or special events. We recommended that. There's also a proposal one time that was brought to our attention of a like a mobile kitchen where it goes from village to village where it's needed, and that was definitely encouraged as well. Of course, there's some investment involved, but it'll help address maybe family members who just want to do this every so often, once in a while. You know, and that's something, a possibility that we suggested and we discussed in the past as well. And we do understand the interest in this. And you're right, Speaker. Several jurisdictions across the United States adopted this.
48.
And there's a lot of health departments that opposed it as well. And I know because I sat in numerous conferences and discussions among our profession, and they're not particularly pleased with it. So they're just working the best they can with existing regulations. And there are, like, as I mentioned, I mean, we're currently challenged as is with our existing requirements. And we've never made it a secret. We're doing less than what we should be doing, but we're prioritizing based on our needs. But it's also true that, you know, we haven't had a foodborne outbreak in the past 5 years. In fact, CDC had made an inquiry as to why Guam hasn't made any reported outbreaks. And our response has simply been, and also stated by our former epidemiologist, we have strong legislation, we have strong food code, and we promote education. I mean, all the individuals who be working in a food facility require a health certificate, and they need to go through a food safety course, and even refresher course now. And so, I'm sorry, going back. So I think having a strong, robust legislation like we do have now, it helps preventing outbreaks. Now, it doesn't mean, as I mentioned, that there's no illnesses associated with foodborne consumption, food consumption. It's just that it's not reported, or people don't bother to seek treatment because it is generally self-limiting. We've all had a minor case of stomach ache, diarrhea, vomiting, but it was not enough to go to the hospital. So there's still foodborne illnesses occurring on island. It just does not reported often because people just simply do not go get treatment. And you're right, Speaker, there are certain food, if you categorize them, which was the highest risk, certain foods will not be in that list compared to those called potentially hazardous food. You're right, absolutely correct. But as I share with you, it's not simply about the food that's being prepared, but the food handler and the sanitation of that facility. I mean, I was raised on this island, and I've been to my share of private functions, fiestas, participated in it, helped with it, and I'll admit, there are times when I stood back and said, wow, this is kind of questionable. You know, I mean, there are times I'm just as guilty. I'll stand in line, and I know that food's been sitting on that table for like hours. But I'm a healthy individual, so my chances of getting ill are not as severe as those who have pre-existing condition, or elderly, or extremely young. And you see them in line with me as well. And I'm always wary when I see this on the table. Now, I'm not saying every party, every individual who make food in their kitchen has poor hygiene or their kitchen is bad, but all it takes is one individual, poor hygiene, who's infected with Hep A, norovirus, shigellosis, or whatever, to infect hundreds of people. I mean, we've seen an outbreak involving 350 kids. And thank God, no one died. And I would like to keep that record. We haven't had any outbreak in the past 5 years. And I think this bill, Bill 88-35, reduces our ability to keep that status. I really do.
Ms. Vanjie, I truly understand that the fat, oil, and grease is a huge issue, especially in you, as noted early, in the residential area. Our cottage food industry views these businesses as residential in every way. How does the Guam Waterworks Authority right now manage the fog in residential? How does it work it now?
So as I said, we have, we do some outreach to tell people, please don't do it. We also partner with public health and Guam EPA, who we all have this, the management of food products that are developed using grease, any type of grease. So we have worked together with public health and Guam EPA. But in residences right now, it's just basically voluntary compliance and educating the community that you're not really, you shouldn't pour grease down your drains because it does clog up our system. When you get when there's a spill in your neighborhood and Guam and GWA has to go there and clean it up, and our source control manager goes and visits all the homes in that 1,000-foot radius to tell them that we're having a sewer overflow, and there's fog in our system, then that's really where the engagement occurs. So we are doing some information outreach to residents. We do quarterly residential oil pickups, and sometimes you see it. We are trying to work more closely with solid waste because, in fact, every person can go to the transfer station, the recycling plant area, and you can submit 15 gallons every day per person for free. So disposal of your oils in the appropriate location, we try to get that word out as well. Right now, we're in the process of developing the complete program, and so right now it's just voluntary compliance and really working with the commercial establishments, other food service industries, but we also are trying to have a complementary resident outreach program. We have worked a lot with the mayor of Dededo as well, and areas where there's hot spots. So not all areas around the island have this issue. There are only 47, right now there's 47 streets that have this, and we try to work more, they get cleaned more often. It just is a lot of resources to do we have a full complement of staff that do this as a regular job.
So the only thing GWA is saying is that if this bill passes, then the potential for increasing fog will be there. But
that is our concern, and our recommendation is that even though you're not going to have all the requirements of a commercial kitchen, we would recommend that the grease removal device, which is around, I just called one of the vendors, and it's around $200, but you can apparently buy it on Amazon for cheaper, but to be installed in your kitchen, and that would be needed to be cleaned out by a authorized grease removal company when the grease trap gets full. So it just depends how often you have to do that, depends on the type of cooking that you're doing.
So my take is you said there are 47 hot spots?
Yes.
And is specifically in the north, central, south?
Majority, I want to just look. They're in everywhere. They're across the island. A lot of them, we do have some hot spots we know that are in commercial areas. Like there's a hot spot here in Agana between the swimming pool and Pizza Hut on O'Brien Drive. And so that we attribute that really to Pizza Hut, Shirley's, although the mall is pretty good. So some of them are not. I know that of the two are attributed mostly to commercial facilities, but the rest are all residential areas. We have several in Agana Heights, Sinahanya, Agate, PD, Dededo, Assen, Harmon, Santa Rita, Tumuning. We have several in Tumuning, Toto and Jigo. So perhaps Dramatic and
I guess
they're not having any.
My contention to that was not all those villages that have hotspots are where home cooking is made, or those. I'm just bringing that up for the record, Madam Chair. I know that I'm hoping to work with the agencies on this because I really think that based on the support and what was presented to the committee, to our office, was that this was an opportunity to start small business entrepreneurs, and I know that we expected that the Division of Public Health would be very, very concerned, but we were hoping that there could be some other ways that we can look at to see what could be amenable or doable to bring this kind of entrepreneurship. Again, these are for mom and pop places, or even, you know, our families who are selling these products, and they're not for every day. They're selling it for just certain events or certain functions. They have, you know, a separate life, but they just want to make a little extra money to go by. In what way than to regulate and give that opportunity and put that in place? So, Madam Chair, I'm hoping that even with the opposition from the agencies, that we can continue to work with the government agencies to see what we can do to find a way where we can bring our own local residents, give them that opportunity to bring their favorite recipes up to place, so that our community can enjoy that. We walk into the mom and pop stores and we see that there are local stuff being made every day, and they're not from commercial kitchens. They're from home kitchens, and just making sure that that realization is there. So that is the intent, and again, working closely with our community residents who wanted to see this up. I do know, Madam Chair, I know that you're opening the opportunity for more written testimony to come in, and I truly appreciate that, because I do want to continue to see, working close with the Department of Public Health and GWA in reference to this area, how can we better work for both the government and the community residents?
May I add just a comment? One of the things that we are concerned about it is to ensure that we are allowed to go in to inspect the kitchens.
Yes.
And that the people that are involved in the industry are going to be required to get the education about how to ensure that, in our particular case, manage the grease and what's required for the grease trap. So those types of regulations we would insist have to be kept, because the education, as Public Health had said, is critical, not just for everybody involved with the handling of the food. And that's typically what you get when you do get a health certificate. You get some of that education.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Ruggiero? Senator Shelton? Thanks. Could I just ask you one question, Mr. Nadeau? Has Public Health looked at a way for smaller businesses to cut costs from the mandates that are currently in place, or other ways to cut costs?
I like to use the temporary TFSC, what we call it, temporary food service establishment, as a good example. TFSC, for those who are not familiar with what they are, it's basically when you have a temporary event, whether it be at a village fiesta or a large event where it attracts a lot of people. They are required to meet the full gamut of the Guam Food Code. However, we recognize the limited infrastructure is temporary, short-term, so we grant waivers. There are waiver provisions, or variants, what we call them. Actually, the official word is variants within the Guam Food Code. And we've done that, so we don't require the entire standards noted in the Guam Food Code. So we do work with the industry best we can, without compromise, as long as there's no compromisation of the health and safety of the public. So our Guam Food Code has a variance provision which allow us to be more flexible in terms of the requirements, and which we have implemented. Good example is all the temporary events that occur on island, that provided it's not like a really long business that lasts months, but it's like truly short term, like a weekend. And we granted variances. For example, hot water is required at all facility, but for temporary events, we're not requiring hot water, provided they have other means to wash, rinse, sanitize the equipment, and wash their hands and such.
All right, I appreciate that. Maybe I'll work with the sponsor to see how that concept might be able to serve some of these people who are just want to, on a very temporary basis, sell some food, maybe seasonally. I don't know. Sure. We'll see. But
If I, Senator, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. If I just may touch on the previous discussion. As I mentioned, I know the village mayors are particularly unhappy with our enforcement because, and I understand, they want their constituents to give the opportunity to make some money and celebrate the event that they're holding and sponsor. We get it. Maybe the legislature, I don't know if I should be saying this, but maybe it could fund the ability to convert some of these home kitchens or home-like kitchens into a more permanent facility, like per village, let's say, out of the mayor's office. I mean, that will, I think, will go a long way in terms of allowing the village to sponsor more events, allow more of their people to participate and have food prepared there at this permitted facility. I think that's one good example of how we can address the concerns brought by the speaker about, people just want to make a little bit of money. It's not an everyday thing. Plus promote the culture. We're all for that. And I suggested that many times our division has to the senators. But of course, it comes down to funding. Maybe that's what it requires, a little bit of seed money to get that going. It's not maybe by village, but at least per maybe district within several villages to share same resources. That's just a suggestion.
All right. Thank you again. Thank you very much for your testimonies today. And there being no further testimony for today, the committee will continue to accept testimony until June 28. And you may submit it to my office or here at the Congress building at the Guam Legislature or to senatorterlajeguam@gmail.com. Public hearing is now adjourned. It's 3:10. Situ Sumasi.